Hi, everyone. This is Tom Salemi. Welcome back to Device Talks Tuesdays. We have a great episode for you this week. As you can see, the title there is NetSuite, Scalability, Flexibility, Access, and Compliance in a Cloud-Based ERP. We have a very robust and knowledgeable panel today. It's going to have a really interesting conversation about the benefits of cloud-based ERP. Medical devices companies have struggled to find an ERP to meet their rigorous requirements. But this is looking for something that allows them to flex and change and to meet their customer needs. And NetSuite today is really going to be gaining popularity, and we're going to really talk with one of their customers about what it can deliver and what are the benefits. So before I get into that, I do want to just give you an introduction, of course, as we always do. This is, as you know, a virtual event, and it is available on demand. So this is completely shareable. If you have friends and colleagues who would benefit from the insights that are coming, please let them know. They can find it at DeviceTalks.com. We'll have that posted up there tomorrow. Just need to give us their name and an email and such, and it'll be available for them with the video, the PowerPoint, everything that goes with it, and they'll even be able to ask questions. Slides are available for you in the resource widget, so you can follow along. We'll have a brief introduction of Luxon and of the issue, but this will be primarily a conversation-based presentation. I've got questions, and I'm sure you have questions. So if you do, please put your questions in the inbox. We'll bring those in as they fit, or we'll save some for the end. I always advise people just to ask them right when they come to mind. Number one, so you don't forget. Number two, so we know how many questions there are to answer, so we can sort of measure the end of the episode. So please ask your questions as they come. And again, if you're watching this on demand, thank you for doing that. And you can still ask questions. We'll make sure they get answered. And if you're tweeting about this, please use hashtag DeviceTalksTuesday. Just quickly about Device Talks, we have our in-person meetings next year. We'll be meeting in Boston, Minnesota, and the West Coast. All this information is available on DeviceTalks.com. We also have our podcast, the weekly Device Talks Weekly podcast. It comes out on Fridays. Each episode focuses on a specific area within MedTech. We'll be focused on urology this week. We're going to have spine and orthopedics and surgical robotics coming up in coming weeks. And this was on magnetic surgery robotic tools, and you can find, again, everything on DeviceTalks.com. We have our Medtronic Talks podcast, where we talk to leaders of Medtronic. Those will be coming out pretty much every week for the rest of the year. So you can subscribe to all of these on most major podcast channels: Amazon, Spotify, Google, Apple, etc. And finally, on Friday, we unveiled our newest podcast, Intuitive Talks. We'll be talking to leaders at Intuitive for the rest of the year. We'll have about one per month, and we'll be looking at how Intuitive. We'll talk a bit about their past in this episode that's out with Gary Guthar, but in this episode and future episodes, we'll be talking about the future. Surgical robotics is a popular space. There'll be a lot of competition emerging. It's already emerged, and Intuitive has thoughts on where things are headed. So please check that out as well. So with no further discussion about us, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Luxon, for bringing this panel together today and for bringing you all here on this episode of Device Talks Tuesdays. As I said, we have a robust panel from Luxon. We have Vivian Kina. She is the founder and CEO. We have Ben Katenberg. He is Chief Solutions Architect. And they were kind enough to bring their colleagues from Inari, one of their customers, and we're going to talk about how they work together and how Inari has benefited. We're going to speak with, as you can see there, Kashif Savani, Eric Lau, and Luis Buenelos, the procurement manager. Eric is, of course, Vice President of Manufacturing, and Kashif is Senior IT Manager. So this is going to be an excellent panel, but I want to give Luxon an opportunity to talk a few minutes about what they bring to this problem and the solution they're offering. So I'd like to hand this off to Vivian.
Great, thanks, Tom. I could go forward there.
One more? Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
So Luxon's been around for since 2009, and our focus has primarily been on manufacturing and distribution customers with service. We've been really focused in the NetSuite community, and we're a full service partner. So we're a full service partner, and we also have an SDN arm, which means we can do development integrations in conjunction with the implementation and support. We have serviced over 800 customers across the U.S. and worldwide, and we are located throughout, our consultants are located and support is located out the United States. You can go forward. So we're a full service partner. So we help customers as we helped Inari in the important selection of their new ERP and really trying to align their software and their needs with the NetSuite solution, and then helping them through the implementation, any integrations needed, and then the more important thing is the ongoing support and strength of their users and ensuring those users are adopted and educated and stay, and that solution continues to extend with them as they grow. You can go forward. Here's some manufacturers from the Luxon community and that you might know. Some of them medical device, some of them in other medical fields, but we have focused in the medical device arena from the inception of Luxon. So you might recognize some of those names there. Let me go forward. Oh, and I can give that to Inari. So thank you. We're excited to have you today. Kasia, if you can do a brief introduction on Inari Medical.
Sure. Thanks, Vivian. So as Vivian alluded to, and Tom, thanks so much for having us on this panel. We're excited and delighted to be here. Inari Medical really is a young startup, that was founded in 2013. We primarily specialize in treating venous clot indications and diseases. And so we have done, over 30,000 patients treated over our life of our company. We have currently 2 FDA cleared and marketed systems or products out there. And we've just, experienced a tremendous amount of growth over the past couple of years. And we continue to kind of, look at our mission of treating this disease state in a, very, very methodical fashion. And we religiously focus on, as a company, of kind of treating the patient first. With that, I think I can hand it back to you, Tom, to get us going on the panel discussion.
Excellent. Well, I was excited when Inari I was told Inari would be in the panel. It's an exciting story, and I didn't realize you were founded in 2013, so you've experienced a lot of growth. Sticking to the topic, I could ask a lot of questions about the company, but what were some of the signs that Inari was ready and needed to consider an ERP system? What were you using at the time to run the business? And maybe you can sort of explain where it was falling short.
You want me to take that one, Kasia?
Oh, I'm sorry, that was for Kasia. Oh, whoever would like to answer, take it away. I'm throwing it out to the ether.
Sure, maybe I can kick that one off. What we were using previously was QuickBooks Enterprise is what we started with. And then we implemented kind of a bolt-on to that in Fishbowl for inventory management. Those solutions worked well for us early on, but as we grew, we needed a bit more. I think we were outgrowing things on the accounting side. I don't know that I'm qualified to talk about their issues, but from a manufacturing perspective, there are maybe 3 main areas that we needed some expanded functionality to keep up with the company's growth. I think the first was really with MRP. In terms of planning, we needed to move past Excel spreadsheets to a more comprehensive and automated offering that NetSuite provided. I think if there's anything that keeps a manufacturing or an ops guy up at night, it's the prospect of running out of a material and facing down a line down situation or a back order. I think really the second thing we needed was better real-time visibility to our raw materials and our work order statuses, and really more detailed reporting. I think that the third thing we were really looking for was we needed a system that we could integrate or was compatible with a warehouse management system. Again, as we were growing, we wanted to ensure accuracy and efficiency within our work order picking and processing and order fulfillment.
Excellent. I'm just curious, was there? Oh, Kash, are we going to add to
that? No, I wasn't.
I'm sorry. Sure. I thought I heard someone else talking. I was just wondering, Eric, was it a plan to move to an ERP like this, or do you is it like a lobster in a pot? You're kind of getting hotter and hotter, and you realize you need to make a change. I wonder what sort of when does it become evident that we have to do something different?
I think we were effective in kind of picking up on some of the early signs where things were headed, and that we needed kind of a more elaborate solution than what we had. I wouldn't say that we brought it all the way to a boiling point. We were able to stay ahead of that a bit.
That's great. Kashyap, what were some of the requirements that you wanted in an ERP system? Did you sort of map that out in advance?
We did, Tom. We had a pretty robust kind of selection process when we were looking at different ERPs, and we had, even stood up sort of a selection committee within the company at the time. As Vivian will tell you, pretty much it felt like the whole company was involved in selecting the ERP. We had a, pretty kind of detailed scorecard that we kept in terms of what factors we wanted to, evaluate. And some of the things that really, looking back on that process, some of the things that really jumped out where we were looking for a system that was first and foremost cloud-based. We were not looking to host anything on site or on premise. We were looking for a system that could sort of scale and grow, because we knew that there was going to be, if things broke right as a business, we knew that there's going to be a long runway of growth in front of us. And we wanted whatever system we picked to be able to keep up with that. And kind of hand in hand with that, we had sort of a few, connected pieces to our ERP ecosystem already, whether it be a tax solution. Eric mentioned kind of a WMS, a warehouse management solution that we wanted to implement, whether it's expense reporting with Concur, things like that we were looking for a system that really could, integrate well with other, providers, right? And really give us that sort of plug and play feel that modern systems today do. So that was a big part of our evaluation. And then just, reportability, kind of ease of getting data back out, modern sort of UI, all of that played a not an insignificant role, I would say, in the evaluation process.
I can only imagine. I have trouble enough with my expense accounts. I can't imagine all that you have to manage with this system. I imagine that there's a lot of a la carte opportunities, a lot of this system does this system does that. I mean, did NetSuite were you looking for something that kind of came out of the box with all the functionality you needed, and did NetSuite provide that?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think, we did, as part of our evaluation, kind of look at sort of requirement by requirement or feature by feature, what's out of the box and what's not, and where could we, extend the solution, right? And one of the differences for us, at least, I felt like, being at Inari versus other places, we sort of leaned into a couple of trends that most medical device and med tech companies kind of shy away from. First and foremost, we leaned into the cloud trend, right? And we said, hey, we really actually want the latest and greatest, and we want the sort of, the ability to have that kind of constantly be updated, right? Whether it's an ERP or whatnot. And the second trend we leaned into was, the big bad word of customization, right? Lots of companies and lots of people shy away from that. But for us, it was one of those where we said, we recognize the strengths and weaknesses of all the different systems, including NetSuite. We knew that, NetSuite played really well for us in sort of the accounting and finance and reporting side. And we knew that it needed a little bit of assist here and there for the manufacturing and operations and quality side, in terms of whether it's, things like lot traceability, which is huge in this industry, right? Pushing down sort of that lot device record down to, the individual transactions and so on. And so we actually leaned into that with Luxon as our partner, who was great at sort of architecting those point, customizations for us, if you will, these bolt-on scripts and things like that helped kind of piece together the final picture. But that was another part of our aspect of NetSuite that we really liked, was its extendability, being able to sort of customize the system a little bit.
I imagine, this is the medical device industry, so you're developing cutting-edge therapeutics and devices that need to be regulated or are regulated and need to be monitored by the FDA. Let's dive a little bit deeper into that requirement. I guess, Eric, I'll ask this question to you. Is Inari required by the FDA to perform software validation on NetSuite's software? Tell us a bit about the process and how that's handled.
Absolutely. A lot of the software that we use is subject to validation to ensure that it's performing as intended. I think though maybe a significant undertaking for an ERP system, I think software validation is a fairly simple thing from a high level. I think you need to define the requirements in terms of how the system needs to perform to meet its intended purpose. You need to design test cases around that to challenge those requirements. And you need to execute on those test cases to ensure that the system performs exactly as expected. We did that with NetSuite. I would say most of our requirements were related to various inventory transactions performing as expected, challenging traceability related to those transactions. And we didn't really run into any issues there. NetSuite met all of our established requirements.
Interesting. Well, tell us, Kashyap, and maybe Louis, if you could tell us a bit. Louis, you haven't had a chance to share yet. Tell us a bit about your relationship with Luxon, and maybe we can get into the whole selection process as we answer this question.
Yeah, the support from Luxon has been fantastic. Obviously, we established a relationship early on, right? Selecting partner and very aggressive implementation timeline and target and stuff, and so that came with the selection of NetSuite. But yeah, Luxon overall has been just a fantastic partner. I think working with us and helping us understand and customize some of the flows, right? I think Kashyap touched on this, and obviously in our world, in our field, lot traceability is key, right? In taking traceability from inventory detail to revisions and iterations and lot numbers and expiration dates, all that stuff was something that Luxon helped us kind of get and grab out of the system. I think that we have a great supporting cast and architects and the folks that we've worked with that have really helped us get to where we're at today. So I think, overall relationship with Luxon has been fantastic. Support has been great. Some of the early folks that we've been working with, Ben, we've been working with Ben recently, but we've got some other folks out there, Ryan and Cassius and Rachel. Vivian obviously has been great working with us. So a little bit about the support and relationship there with Luxon.
And how about the selection process, Kashyap? I'm not quite sure who this question would go to. It might be you. How did you select them as your NetSuite ERP provider?
Well, really the provider selection was equally as important as the platform selection as well. And the reason for that is we had a very aggressive timeline, as Luis alluded to. So our total time from sort of when we kicked the project off to say, hey, we want a ERP system, to get going live was 6 months. And that included about, a couple of months sort of evaluating different systems and then partners, and then selecting one and then 3.5 months of implementation. So it's critical for us to find a partner that could sort of live in that, and be comfortable with that timeline of 3.5 months. And that comfort level really only comes from a partner who's willing to work as nimble as we were willing to work, as sort of flexible and as agile a manner as we would like, right? We sort of have one of our kind of tenets of our company here really is that we like to sort of make decisions fast, right? And iterate very quickly. If we're going to fail, we fail early, right? Typical sort of startup mentality that you find in all successful startups. And so we were looking for that from a partner standpoint as well, somebody who could come in and kind of play in those areas and be comfortable. And one of the other kind of hurdles that NetSuite faced, as well as Luxon did, was the whole validation piece we talked about, right? And that was a huge sort of hurdle going back to the time when we selected NetSuite. We needed to ensure that NetSuite and Luxon, both as a whole, would have sort of a pathway for us to be able to validate the solution. And they came up with a consultant who they brought on, for validation, and that was sort of the last bit that really kind of squared the deal for us and said, yep, you know what, Luxon seems to be the right partner. We believe we can get to the end, product with them in 3-4 months or whatever our timeline was.
Excellent. We'll talk a bit about the implementation experience. How long did it take to implement NetSuite, and any lessons learned? Anything you would have done differently? I don't know if that's for you or for Eric, perhaps.
You want to go ahead and kick it off, Kashyap?
Sure. So yeah, as I said, about 3.5 months of the implementation. And, it was just a sort of a clinic in scope management. We knew that kind of, our timeline was aggressive. And so our approach as a whole was to kind of replicate what we were doing before NetSuite, but just now within NetSuite. And all we were looking for was parity. We were not looking to sort of improve just yet. We knew that those improvements would come after we went live. And that's been a big part of our relationship with Luxon, our ongoing relationship with Luxon, right? Over the past, we've been live since November of 2019. And since then, we've really focused on sort of deepening our usage of NetSuite and our experience with the platform overall. And Luxon's kind of continue to play a key role in doing that for us. And Eric, please feel free to add to the implementation.
I don't have too much to add there. I would say it was the implementation, while a lot of work, was a surprisingly smooth process. We did hit our timelines, like Kashyap mentioned there. The key was really kind of watching scope creep, implementing in phase one what was critical, and pushing other things out to subsequent phases. And I thought we did a good job with that, and Luxon was wonderful to work with during that implementation process.
It's probably great to have that in place. You said November 2019. I'm thinking March 2020, everything shut down and the world changed. I'm sure it was a great comfort to have that set up and ready to go.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, excellent. All right, well, let's hear from the Luxon side. Ben Katerberg. Ben, does NetSuite offer manufacturing and engineering solutions? Can you tell us a bit about those capabilities?
Obviously, NetSuite has manufacturing functionality, and on a cloud ERP, we have 2 releases a year, so they're continuously improving the functionality. But as it relates to medical manufacturers, some of the kind of major benefits we've seen with some of the releases in the manufacturing space are the availability of bill of material revisions, which are critical to kind of that iterative design process within a PLM system, right? So you can design multiple versions of a bill of material as you go through that iterative design with different effectivity dates, right? Another feature within manufacturing that's been very helpful is component yields, the ability to kind of allow for planned waste to be incorporated into the cost of the product. And then another real big one here is the work in process features and the routings. So being able to set up kind of more of a detailed assembly process with multiple work centers that allows for kind of that work in process over a longer manufacturing time.
Interesting. And manufacturing has gone through such challenges over the last 2 years. Speaking of COVID, I wonder and I don't know if this comes into play, but what does NetSuite have to allow the ease of traceability of material through the different stages of manufacturing?
Yeah, so I think as we've heard, from Kashyap and Eric previously, NetSuite does offer lot traceability, serialized inventory, as kind of a substructure of their item setup. And that function really exists from the receipt of raw materials all the way through, sub-assemblies and the creation of finished goods. And obviously that will translate into a lot of the reporting capabilities, whether you need to do, a forward trace to look at raw materials. Maybe this particular lot was defective and it got placed in some sub-assemblies, so you need to look forward, or the backward traceability, starting with a finished good and look to see all the components that went into that finished good.
Eric, I'm just curious, how has Inari been impacted during the last 2 years on the manufacturing side? Are your supplies, your supply chain's intact and working well?
The supply chain is definitely intact. I wouldn't say that there hasn't been bumps in the road. We've been affected just like everybody else. But I think utilizing the systems to or NetSuite to kind of set safety stocks at levels that kind of protect us from delayed shipments or deliveries has mitigated our risk a bit. But there's definitely been some bumps along the road for sure.
Mm-hmm. I guess that it's great that you had that system in place. Ben, how does NetSuite's inspection process work?
So really just kind of at a high level, right? You're looking for the ability to inspect raw materials as you're coming in from vendors. You need to inspect materials from the sub-assemblies or even the finished good assemblies process. So really where that starts is defining your tests up front in NetSuite, right? You have certain tests that you perform, and you may perform the same tests on many of the same items over and over, but maybe just different standards item by item. So you'll define those tests up front. You'll assign those tests to essentially a specification record. And then you'll start assigning out those specifications to different items and have different context where those should trigger inspections. And those are going to be the inspection notifications for your quality team to perform, all of the inputs within a kind of tablet mode. And then really, after you have all that set up, it's just normal day-to-day processing, right? Receive my goods from my vendor. That may trigger an inspection for my quality team to, run a couple tests, take a couple samples, and, create my work orders. Maybe I stop at this workstation first. That's the trigger for another inspection, right? And so it's kind of building that work list for my quality team.
And how about on the quality management process? How does NetSuite help automate that?
So some of the automation that's included within quality management is, first off, the kind of system triggers for those inspections to be performed. So as I mentioned, you're just processing everyday transactions, right? Receiving goods from vendors. Those automatically trigger the work list for your quality team, right? So that's one of the biggest kind of automation features within quality. But then secondly, having the ability to have separate items that haven't been inspected yet, or maybe they have been inspected and failed, being able to have a quarantine strategy and ensure that you're still showing the product in your ERP system. It's still on your financials, right? Still see that product in the location, but it's not necessarily available to be sent off to a customer or not available to be issued to another work order. So that separation between uninspected or failed kind of product inspections is one of the major benefits to having quality within your ERP. And then obviously being able to have some kind of output for the quality inspections themselves. So having a certificate of analysis, for instance, that can be generated out of NetSuite that tells your customers, here are all the products I'm sending you, and here's the associated results from that specific lot that I'm sending to you.
Interesting. All right, well, let's turn back to Inari. Before we do, if there are questions from the audience, now is a good time to ask them, to post them up there. So, but we'd love to turn this back to Eric. Eric, we've talked about the life of a startup. Inari's a fast-growing company. It's grown very quickly since you brought in NetSuite. Was there concern that NetSuite wasn't going to be able to support that sort of growth as you continue to scale?
No, I don't think there was ever a concern with that, and there still isn't a concern. I think NetSuite is continuing to scale with us well. Ever since we went live back in November of 2019, we've always had some sort of project going to increase the scope of our use of the system or adding functionality to it, and we're continuing to do that today. So no, I don't have any specific concerns with NetSuite's ability to continue to grow and scale with us.
And how do you? What are your plans to leverage the platform going forward, supporting international growth, overall business growth? How does NetSuite fit into that?
I mean, I think NetSuite fits into all of those pieces. I don't know that I can get into any specific plans around some of those things. I can talk about maybe some of the projects that we do have going. We've kicked off some projects to implement an advanced BOM module, an advanced MRP module. I think NetSuite holds all of the pieces to support some of those things you alluded to, different locations, business entities, those sorts of things. So I don't see any specific concerns there either with the system's ability to keep up with us.
Great. Let's talk a bit about, yes.
I was going to say, sorry, if I could add to it.
No, please.
One other piece maybe that we didn't touch upon earlier. NetSuite has this great ecosystem around it, right? And so some of the other projects and some of the other things we look for is maybe there's a point solution to help automate or increase our efficiency of our AP processes, right? For instance. And so we may go look for an AP tool, accounts payable, right? Tool that we could add. And anytime we do one of these things, we always kind of look at, well, what are the functionalities that NetSuite Core provides? And if not, NetSuite does such a great job of just saying, look, we have something, but, you're better off going to this partner of ours that they partnered with all these different solution providers. And it's just literally a plug and play at that point, right? You bring them on and you kind of bolt the solution on. We did that last year with a non-inventory purchasing solution. We may, do that in the future with some sort of a AP solution, that helps the accounting and finance team out. And so that's also part of what went into selecting NetSuite and how we believe that NetSuite can continue to scale and grow with us.
Luis, you seem to have some thoughts on that as well.
No, I'll just add to what Kashyap was saying. It was quite nice to be able to kind of plug and play other modules, right? So NetSuite's built nicely, where we were able to kind of implement a couple things, and it went very well. And so I was just agreeing to what Kashyap was stating.
Excellent. It's always good to have a second opinion in agreement. Well, let's just talk a bit about Inari itself. You mentioned the last 2 years have been rough in a lot of, obviously, a lot of ways for the world. But Inari has had great success. You managed to go public in, I think it was May 2020. So I know you're not going to speak directly to that, but you folks have been moving forward. I know Luxon has talked about your special culture to us. Can you tell us a bit about maybe Luis, you can start since you're up on the screen. Tell us a bit about Inari, its culture, and really what makes it special.
Yeah, no, I think I can touch on that. Inari is obviously a very special company. I've been a part of a couple of small startups and whatnot, but the vibe here, the culture, the world here is a lot different, and it's really brought down from upper management. We really do live and breathe everything we speak, right? And we really are focused on not just the customer service part of it, but we are focused and we take to heart the just the criticality of this disease, and we're all focused on trying to march and build great, wonderful products to save people's lives, and that love and passion that starting from our CEO and on down is I think spread across the entire company and organization. And so, it's a fantastic place, and obviously I should be saying that because this is my employer, but I absolutely 100% mean that, right? I love what I do. Sunday evenings come and it's a thrill to come back and get ready for Monday mornings, right? And not many people can say, hey, we love going to work on Mondays, right? Mondays are tough. We all say that, but we love our employer. We love the culture. We love the stuff that we do here. And it's all really spread down from above. And so, great company, great culture. What else can we add to that? Right.
I'm happy to I shouldn't say this while being recorded, but we had a holiday yesterday, and last night I wasn't feeling super enthused about coming to work today. I could use another day off. So if I'm to be honest here, Kashyap, how about I hope my CEO is not watching this recording, but Kashyap, how about from your perspective? Have you worked at medical device companies before, and how did you come to work at Inari, and what makes it, what gives it its culture?
Yeah, sure. So I have. I've had the fortunate experience of working at other med device startups. And, Inari is, I've been blessed with, it's sort of the second unicorn, if you will, that I've, been part of. And I don't mean from the financial side. I mean, really from the company and culture side, right? It's truly a unicorn in that things really sort of fit in place really well. And part of that, as Luis alluded to, is really coming from our leadership team. There's a deep-rooted humbleness and humility in this place, and that really comes from our CEO, Bill Hoffman. He sets that tone, and really we can't help but follow because he's got such a great personality and an aura about him. And it just flows down from there, where every single person in this place, I feel like, is tugging and pulling in the same direction, is willing to kind of band together and really help, one another out. It's sort of, I always kind of liken it to, I've got a family at home, and then this is my Inari family, right? It really feels like that. Luis, you hit it on the head. I mean, whether it's Sunday or even every night, I never dread coming to work. In fact, I look forward to it because it's just such a joy to work in this environment with this, family. And myself, I'd been a consultant in Inari, actually. That's how I started. And Inari's got this great track record of flipping consultants over. And the way that it is, we just kind of go about, our way of saying, look, this is what we are as a company. This is how we operate. And there's no selling and there's none of that, right? It's just like full transparency, how we want to work. We want to be quick about our decisions. We want our people to, feel like they matter and the work they do matter. And we tie it every single day to what's happening out there in the hospitals for us, right, with our patients and how we're treating that disease state. So
I think that's a great point. I mean, I think people outside the medtech industry don't appreciate that people inside the medtech industry really do take the benefits of the devices and the care of the patients as seriously as they do, I should say. Definitely is a major driver. Eric, I'll just wrap up with you on the Inari part, and then I have a question for Ben that's sort of related to the medtech startup world. But Eric is someone who's working in charge of manufacturing at a medical device company. What is that like for you? I mean, I talked to so many startups where maybe they get to the point of manufacturing for clinical trials, but don't get it for commercialization. I'm just curious from a manufacturing point of view, manufacturing medical devices, how have you done that before, and sort of how special is it to be part of that process?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely worked in organizations before within manufacturing and engineering prior to Inari, but it's specifically within Inari, it's been pretty incredible to see the growth from basically no manufacturing to, as you alluded to, kind of early manufacturing to support our IDE clinical trial, and watching that expand and grow as we launched our products commercially into what it is now, which for us is pretty high volume manufacturing. We've got a great team, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
That's terrific. So Ben, I'd like to ask you one thing that's fascinating to me covering medtech startups is Inari went public. I mentioned that last year, but ultimately smaller medtech companies, not all of them, but many of them get acquired by bigger companies. And I'm always fascinated as to how the infrastructure of one sort of integrates with the infrastructure of the other. If you're a big company, and I mentioned at the top of the podcast, we have focusing on the really big companies, buying those smaller companies. I know the devil can really be in the details as to getting the data info from one to play nice with the data and info and systems of the other. How does NetSuite sort of fit into that, and how does it allow for M&A and sort of future changes? I'm sure there are other medical device companies will be hearing this, and they'll want to know, that they can say, look, we can transition easily because we got this. How does that work for NetSuite?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic question. And obviously just from that scalability perspective, that's one of the major benefits of NetSuite. So I've worked in other ERPs. I've implemented many other ones, including kind of enterprise level SAP. We've actually had clients that run enterprise level solutions come to NetSuite to kind of set up a light ERP specifically for that scalability when they're acquiring a new company and they need to stand it up on a platform immediately. That's how they'll use NetSuite. So being able to kind of separate out those legal entities, add additional locations, extend products to all potential locations, that's really, really easy to do in NetSuite, as well as kind of the inverse, right? You may have a particular structure set up in NetSuite, and then having kind of that structure set up and scale back if you were to have certain elements of your business sold off. It's very easy to do in NetSuite based on the organizational structure that we set up. And especially once you go live on the system, as Inari mentioned, right, they had like a 6-month implementation. But from that point, once everything else is already set up, I mean, you can stand up a new legal entity, a new location in no time at all. Interesting.
I'd love to circle back, Ben, one more question for you, and then I'd like to get some sort of words of advice from the folks at Inari. But I'm curious, Ben, is there a minimum size company that you deal with looking for a NetSuite product? You deal with what's the earliest stage? What is the earliest stage when a company should be considering this? Should they be waiting for they're seeing the water stains on the proverbial walls and things are about to bust open, or should they kind of connect with you or in earlier on and kind of get ahead of this? What is a good time for a company to be thinking about a NetSuite system?
So in my humble opinion here, I think organizations should have those conversations sooner rather than later, because
sure.
NetSuite isn't necessarily designed to only be a one-size-fits-all solution, right? We offer solutions for startup organizations who are small, right? Even the mom and pop shop kind of size. We have kind of starter packages for them who don't necessarily require some of the more advanced features, right? So many organizations may start up just looking at financials. They may start with financials and move into basic inventory management. They may extend that further on into demand planning features and MRP. They may continue to expand from that point into more advanced manufacturing concepts, right? Going down the whole work in process and routings, and then build on top of that in the future to even expand into quality management, right? So you can get started with that conversation just simply tracking financials just from the very beginning, and then continue to scale up with new features as you continue to grow.
Excellent. Good stuff. And from the Inari team, I guess, any suggestions to other medical device manufacturing companies that are looking for an ERP? Let's start with Louis. We'll start with you. Any words of advice on the process and just what others might learn from your experience?
No, I think each one carries their own responsibility to kind of see what they're trying to gather, right, and see. One of our things is a lot of traceability, right? As med device companies, we've got to make sure that a platform or a system is able to track back from Z to A, right? And obviously, most ERP systems do that, but some do it much better than others, right? And so I think that it's taking a look at, I guess, the business needs for one, and seeing where we're trying to get to. What is the ultimate goal? I don't know if I have any other suggestions for them, but I think that each one has like Kashyap had stated earlier, I think we had a large committee, and we're looking at what we needed for our business, right? And it took, Vivian was there, it took the entire company, right? And make sure we addressed all the needs in all departments and cross-functionally. And so, and so that's, yeah.
Okay. And Kashyap, how about you? Any words of advice?
I think, mostly it's being open and transparent about what, the business is looking for at that time. Not every company, not every situation is going to, demand some of the things that perhaps we were looking for or placed value in. But if you're just open about kind of your selection process and what you value in that, then I think you can come out with, any system or a system that will more or less fit the needs, right? And I say more or less because every system is going to have its pros and cons, and it's going to have its strengths and weaknesses, and you just have to figure out a game plan for how you're going to mitigate some of those weaknesses, so to speak. And really, like I alluded to earlier, for us, some of the things that we placed a value on was being in the cloud, having this large ecosystem of partners that we could, really leverage, not just the platform of NetSuite, but really have NetSuite acting as our base around which we can build over time. And so if those are, some of the things that you value, then, by all means, I think look for systems like NetSuite to help meet those needs.
Excellent. And Eric, I'll let you have the final word on that question.
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to give Kashyap some props here because he really ran the process for us, and I thought he did it really well and in a really well an organized manner. I think something that he did that worked really well for us was kind of a scorecard approach, where we met in kind of as a cross-functional team, and we established requirements. What did we have to have? What was important to us? What did we need the system to do? And then we weighted those requirements. And as we looked at different systems, we all filled out scorecards. And the scorecards and the scores really helped us kind of narrow down to kind of the best fit system for us, which obviously ended up being NetSuite.
Terrific. Great advice. All right. Great conversation. Any final words, Ben? Do you want to, any thoughts on the process of choosing yourself?
Yeah. Actually, that is a great question. So obviously, making an investment in an ERP is a big decision for an organization. And there are many, many ways to implement an ERP. There are many ways to implement it incorrectly, right? So I think when it comes to choosing a partner, I think it's very, very helpful to choose a partner that has experience in that particular industry with some of the same challenges, understands the solution, and can guide you in the process. Because new organizations moving towards an ERP, they don't know what they don't know, right? So that's why it is vital to choose a great strategic partner that can help grow with you, understand your challenges, and know exactly what features are right for you.
Fantastic. All right.
Tom,
excellent.
Sorry, I know we're trying to wrap.
No, please.
Coming from Ben as a Luxon service provider is one thing, but I'll chime in from the other side as a client. He's absolutely right, spot on. I think one of the things that every sort of company that's looking to implement an ERP should make sure is in their scorecard is the implementation partner. So I think that partner is as critical, if not more so than the platform itself. As I mentioned, when I was a consultant, I've come across many implementation where The platform was fine, but the partner themselves were just, not with the program, so to speak, and the implementation would drag on. I mean, you can imagine for these startups, if you're looking to kind of, whether it's some sort of exit play, financially driven, or you're just trying to scale up your company and operations, you want to get live in months, right? I mean, as soon as you cross that 6-month threshold, forget it. At that point, there's fatigue in the organization. People just kind of mentally check out. It just seems like the process is dragging on. And so you really want to partner with somebody that can get you live very, very quickly and still maintain some of those, again, the feature parity and maintain and mitigate some of the risks that may be involved. And so picking, a company like Luxon that really, can get you there, and they've proven it with us. They did a fantastic job in kind of, getting us live in 3.5 months.
3.5 months.
I couldn't speak more highly of them than that. So I think, Ben, you're spot on when you say, choosing the right partner with the right experience, specifically in that industry, specifically knowing kind of the requirements, whether it's in this case regulated industry with the FDA requirements, is really key.
Yes, thank you for that.
Can't add anything more to that. That's a very powerful testimony. So fantastic. Well, this has been very informative and a great deal of insight shared today. Thank you to our panelists for being part of this episode.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And thanks, of course, to Luxon for putting this all together. And thanks to everyone who's attended this episode of Device Talks Tuesdays. We'll see you next time.